we brought back the dire wolf. But it turns out, the dire wolf was never a wolf at all. His name is Remus. Engineered in a lab, assembled from fragments of Ice Age DNA, he was designed to walk and hunt like a predator that disappeared 10,000 years ago. But after scientists sequenced the real dire wolf genome, they discovered something no one expected, something that changes what Remus is, and what we think we're bringing back from extinction. What began as a scientific resurrection may actually be something else entirely, a reconstruction shaped by memory, ambition, and myth. And by the end of this video, we'll reveal the discovery that changed how scientists see the dire wolf and what it means for every creature we try to bring back from the past. You're watching Armchair Archaeology, and today we're following the strange return of the dire wolf and asking what happens when the past doesn't come back quite the way we imagined. Before we dive into how Remus came to be, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We've got more strange returns and ancient mysteries coming your way every week, and you won't want to miss them. Remus wasn't found in a frozen valley or pulled from a tar pit. He was created, not discovered. Inside a high-tech lab, surrounded by incubators and data screens, scientists used fragments of ancient DNA to reconstruct a predator last seen 10,000 years ago. But he isn't a clone. No complete dire wolf genome has ever been recovered. What researchers had were scattered sequences extracted from fossilized bone, degraded, incomplete, and thousands of years old. Rebuilding a creature from that meant starting with scraps. They turned to CRISPR, a gene-editing tool that allows scientists to cut and replace DNA with precision. CRISPR acts like molecular scissors, letting scientists cut and paste genes with astonishing precision, but only when the full picture is known. The viable dire wolf sequences were spliced into the embryos of grey wolves, not to copy the past, but to approximate it. Remus was the first successful birth. Romulus and Colossal followed. Physically, they seem convincing. Broader skulls, larger frames, heavier jaws. These traits were targeted, chosen from fossil comparisons, then programmed into the genome. Their movements even carry a weight that feels ancient. But how they think, react, or interact, that's still unfolding. Because much of the original genome was missing, scientists had to make decisions. Not just technical ones, but interpretive ones. Gaps were filled using data from modern canids and guided by assumptions about what the dire wolf should have been. In the end, they didn't rebuild a perfect animal. They constructed an idea, one shaped by evidence, but completed by imagination. Remus may resemble a creature from the Ice Age, but every cell in his body reflects the influence of modern science. He walks like something ancient, but he exists because we believed we could rebuild the past. And that raises a haunting possibility. Maybe what we've brought back isn't the dire wolf at all, but something else we've only just begun to understand. For decades, the dire wolf lived mostly in legend, a pop culture predator made larger than life. On TV, they tower over horses and tear through men with supernatural strength. In reality, they were real Ice Age carnivores, and in many ways, more fascinating than fiction ever allowed. They were bigger than modern grey wolves, yes, but not the giants pop culture imagined. The largest dire wolves likely weighed between 130 and 150 pounds, about the size of a large mastiff. They had thicker bones, broader skulls, shorter legs, and jaws built for power over speed. They weren't designed to chase, they were built to crush. Dire wolves thrived across North and South America for nearly 2 million years, living alongside mammoths, giant sloths, and saber-toothed cats. Their fossils are most famously found in the La Brea tar pits in California, where thousands of skeletons were preserved in sticky death traps of natural asphalt. Over 4,000 specimens have been pulled from La Brea alone, one of the richest predator fossil beds on Earth. If you're fascinated by the ancient world, you'll love our ebook, Secrets of the Ancient World. From forgotten cities to mind-blowing technologies, it's packed with the same curiosity-driven storytelling you find here. Check the pinned comment for the link. That fossil record offers more than just numbers. Some skeletons show signs of healed injuries, fractured legs, worn teeth, even crushed jaws that had mended. These wolves lived on, despite serious wounds, suggesting something remarkable. They may have hunted in packs and even cared for one another. This hint of social behavior challenges the image of the dire wolf as a lone beast. It may have been a cooperative predator, strategic, adaptive, and emotionally complex. What do you think? Could a creature like this have survived today? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your theories. For a long time, scientists assumed it was just a larger cousin of the gray wolf. Same family, different branch. But as you'll see in the next section, that assumption rested on a dangerous idea that if something looks like a wolf, it must be one. The truth was buried deeper. And when scientists finally looked inside its DNA, what they found changed everything. The bones told one story, the DNA told another. For generations, scientists had studied the dire wolf's fossilized remains. Thousands of skeletons preserved in tar pits, cave sites, and ancient floodplains. From those bones, they learned how the animal moved, what it hunted, and how it may have died. But for all the physical evidence, one question lingered. What was the dire wolf really? Unlike fossils, DNA is fragile. It breaks down over time, especially in warm environments. And most dire wolf remains were found far from the icy climates that help preserve ancient genomes. For years, researchers believed the genetic record had been erased. Then, in 2021, a breakthrough. A team managed to extract fragments of dire wolf DNA from 5 well-preserved specimens, including a 13,000-year-old tooth and a dense inner ear bone. Using next-generation sequencing, they began reconstructing its genome. And what they found shocked them. For over 100 years, dire wolves had been classified as close relatives of gray wolves, cousins at the very least. They looked the part. Same body plan, same predatory behavior, just a bit bulkier and more rugged. But genetically, they were something entirely different. The dire wolf didn't just branch off from gray wolves, it split from the entire wolf lineage more than 5 million years ago. That makes it more distant from gray wolves than humans are from chimpanzees. Its closest living relatives? Not wolves, but jackals and African wild dogs. That discovery shattered old assumptions. What we thought was a bigger, bolder wolf turned out to be the last survivor of a lost lineage, a ghost from a forgotten evolutionary path. And that means when scientists set out to bring back the dire wolf, they weren't resurrecting a wolf at all. They were reviving something far stranger. The dire wolf's return didn't begin with a discovery, it began with a blueprint. At the center of this effort is Colossal Biosciences, a biotech company founded with a singular mission: to reverse extinction. Not metaphorically, literally. Using advanced tools like CRISPR, they aim to bring back species that vanished thousands of years ago and release them into modern ecosystems. Colossal became known for its bold claims and even bolder biotech. Their first headline project was the woolly mammoth. The plan isn't to create a museum relic, but a cold-adapted elephant hybrid designed to help restore Arctic grasslands and stabilize permafrost. The goal is ecological restoration through resurrection. Then came the thylacine, the striped marsupial predator that vanished from Tasmania in the 1930s. And now, the dire wolf. Unlike endangered species preservation, this isn't about saving what still exists. It's about rebuilding what's already gone. And that means making decisions. When Colossal turned its focus to the dire wolf, they weren't copying a genome. They were interpreting it. DNA fragments were recovered from ancient fossils and inserted into gray wolf embryos using CRISPR. Missing sequences were filled in with informed guesses, drawn from related species and evolutionary logic. The result wasn't a replica. It was a reconstruction. Remus, along with Romulus and Colossal, became the first predators revived not from frozen remains, but from code. Their existence marks a shift in de-extinction, from preservation to creation. Colossal sees this as the beginning. Their vision includes wild herds of mammoths, rewilded thylacines, and perhaps dire wolves roaming again, not in cages, but in habitats built or rebuilt for them. But creating life from fragments means more than resurrection. It means writing a new chapter of evolution, one we're now authoring ourselves. The dire wolf was a survivor. It roamed the Americas for nearly 2 million years, through ice ages, warming cycles, and the rise and fall of countless species. It thrived in a world of mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and bison, the size of cars. And then, in a geological instant, it was gone. The end came fast, around 10,000 years ago. As the ice age drew to a close, global temperatures rose, glaciers receded, and ecosystems collapsed. Many of the megafauna that dire wolves depended on vanished. Without large prey, their specialized hunting strategies and heavy build may have become liabilities. But climate alone doesn't tell the whole story. Just like with lost species, lost civilizations often vanished for reasons we're only now starting to understand. Our ebook, Secrets of the Ancient World, dives into collapses, mysteries, and the clues left behind. Check the pinned comment if you're curious. New competitors arrived from across the land bridge: gray wolves and coyotes, smaller and more adaptable. These canids could survive on smaller prey, reproduce more quickly, and adjust to changing environments. They spread fast, and where they met dire wolves, they likely outcompeted them. Humans were another pressure. Early hunter-gatherers hunted the same prey, and possibly the dire wolves themselves. While we can't quantify the impact, human expansion often correlates closely with extinction events. But perhaps the most surprising factor was genetic. Despite their wolf-like appearance, dire wolves were far too distantly related to gray wolves to interbreed. There was no genetic exchange, no mixing of traits. As their world changed, they couldn't adapt by blending into the canid gene pool. They were isolated, biologically and evolutionarily, and when the environment shifted beneath them, they had nowhere to go. The dire wolf didn't die out because it was weak. It died out because it was alone. Genetically isolated, it couldn't adapt through hybridization, unlike gray wolves and coyotes, who could exchange traits to survive. And now, thousands of years later, we've brought it, or something like it, back into a world just as uncertain. We brought back a predator. But does the world still have a place for it? The ecosystems that once supported dire wolves are long gone. Their prey, mammoths, giant ground sloths, ice age bison, are extinct. The open grasslands and cold plains they once roamed have been transformed into farms, forests, highways, and suburbs. So where would a creature like Remus even belong? Reintroducing apex predators is never simple. When gray wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone in the 1990s, it triggered a cascade of ecological changes. Elk populations fell, vegetation returned, beavers came back, Even the rivers shifted course. One predator changed an entire landscape. Now imagine doing that with a genetically reassembled predator from the Ice Age, one whose behavior we don't fully understand. Could Remus and others like him thrive in the wild, or would they be confined to research enclosures, zoo exhibits, or tightly controlled reserves? And if they were released, what would happen to existing species, including modern wolves, who now fill the niche their ancient cousins once held? There's also the risk of imbalance. If a recreated predator doesn't behave like its ancestor or behaves too well, it could destabilize fragile ecosystems already under stress from climate change and habitat loss. For now, Remus and his siblings live under observation, but Colossal Biosciences has hinted at future rewilding, the idea of returning de-extinct animals to functioning ecosystems. It's an ambitious vision, but the world Remus was built to survive in doesn't exist anymore. And that leaves us with a haunting question. When we bring a predator back from extinction, are we giving it life or placing it in a world where it no longer has one? Remus didn't evolve. He didn't adapt. He didn't emerge through survival or natural selection. He exists because we decided he should, and that makes all the difference. Creating him was not an act of discovery, but authorship. Scientists pieced together fragments of ancient code, made educated guesses, and edited life into a shape they believed once existed. The outcome looks like a dire wolf, but ethically, it's something else entirely. If Remus cannot live without human control, if he can't thrive in the wild or breed naturally, have we truly brought the species back? Or have we created a living replica designed for study, observation, and containment? And what happens when something goes wrong? In 2003, scientists cloned a Pyrenean ibex, a species declared extinct only 3 years earlier. The cloned animal survived just 7 minutes after birth, long enough to be declared the first species in history to go extinct twice. That wasn't failure. It was the beginning of a pattern. De-extinction opens the door to creation, but also to suffering, to lives that exist in isolation, with no true place in the world. We imagine ourselves as caretakers of the past, but in truth, we've become its designers. And with design comes responsibility, not just for what we build, but for where, how, and why we release it. And that brings us to a harder question. Are we resurrecting animals to preserve nature or to reinvent it in a form we can control? If you appreciate the deep dives we do on this channel, consider hitting the super thanks button to support our work. It really helps us keep exploring these complex stories with care. Remus didn't ask to be born. He didn't choose his genes or the world he's entered, but we did. And that means the question isn't just whether he can survive, it's whether we understand what we've done and what we might do next. Before gene editing could reshape life, archaeology had to uncover it. The dire wolf wasn't brought back because we found its DNA first. It started with bones, thousands of them, pulled from ancient tar pits, floodplains, and cave systems. Long before anyone knew how to read a genome, scientists were reading the land. Fossils told the first version of the story. Massive jaws, heavy skulls, unusually thick limbs, worn teeth, and healed fractures suggested brutal lives and possible cooperation, with injured pack members surviving through group support. These weren't just killing machines, they were social animals, intelligent, strategic. Archaeologists mapped their range, studied their kill sites, and traced how they moved with changing climates. Their work helped reconstruct behavior, diet, and environmental pressures, forming a picture of what life had looked like in a vanished world. But beneath those bones, something fragile remained. In 2021, geneticists managed to recover usable DNA from 5 dire wolf specimens, including a molar buried for 13,000 years. That single tooth opened the genome. It let scientists read what the bones couldn't show, not just how dire wolves lived, but what they were and how far they stood from modern canids. But here's the critical truth. That breakthrough only happened because of decades of careful excavation, cataloging, and preservation. Without context, the DNA would have meant little. The bones told scientists where to look, what questions to ask, and how to recognize what they were seeing. Genetics brought the tools, but archaeology built the foundation. If Remus walks again, it's not just because of modern science. It's because the ancient world left behind a trail, and we finally learned how to follow it. The dire wolf may be the first of its kind to walk again, but it won't be the last. Across the globe, scientists are now eyeing species that vanished not millions, but thousands of years ago. The Ice Age didn't just take the dire wolf, it also erased woolly mammoths, cave lions, giant ground sloths, and the thylacine, the so-called Tasmanian tiger. Today, all of them are on the list of potential candidates for de-extinction. Colossal Biosciences has made the mammoth its flagship project, but their goal isn't nostalgia, it's climate strategy. By reintroducing cold-adapted elephants to the tundra, they hope to restore grasslands, reduce permafrost melt, and slow carbon release. The thylacine is next in line. With preserved specimens in museums, its DNA is more complete, making reconstruction more straightforward. Other researchers are exploring the genetics of the woolly rhinoceros, Irish elk, and even ancient bison. And the raw material for all this? It's astonishing. In the Siberian permafrost, entire Ice Age animals have been uncovered, flesh intact, organs preserved, fur still in place. One mammoth calf was found with the contents of its last meal still in its stomach. But there's more than muscle memory in these frozen remains. Ancient microbiomes, gut bacteria, fungal spores, and even dormant viruses have also been recovered. Some may offer insight into prehistoric life. Others could pose risks we don't yet understand. De-extinction isn't just about animals, it's about reviving entire ecosystems, and possibly ancient diseases too. The Ice Age isn't just a chapter in history, it's a frozen archive. And as it melts, the question becomes not just what we can bring back, but whether we're ready for what might return with it. De-extinction promises something powerful, that extinction isn't forever, that with the right tools, we can turn loss into restoration. But when we look closely at what's being brought back, we're not really returning to the past. We're rebuilding it and redesigning it in the process. Not just preserving history, but scripting it. Remus wasn't recovered whole. He was created from incomplete genetic fragments, sequences so degraded they had to be interpreted, not just decoded. Scientists made choices about what to insert, what to reconstruct, and what to leave out. They turned to related species to fill in the blanks. Fossils helped define form, but instinct, behavior, ecology, that's where science meets speculation. And this isn't just true for Remus. The mammoth won't come back as the mammoth. It will be part Asian elephant, part prehistoric code. The thylacine will be pieced together from museum specimens and DNA from close relatives. Every de-extinct creature is, by definition, a best guess. So what are we making? Not revivals, reconstructions, approximations of what once was, filtered through what we want now. We're designing animals not only to resemble the past, but to function in the world we've created. That gives us more than power. It gives us authorship. And authorship means responsibility. If we're deciding what traits to resurrect, we're also deciding what histories to prioritize and what versions of nature we choose to remember. Remus looks like a dire wolf. He moves like one. But how close is close enough? And what happens when something we created begins to take on a life of its own? Because when researchers finally sequenced Remus completely, they discovered something unexpected, something that didn't just challenge assumptions about the dire wolf. It redefined what they had brought back altogether. 10,000 years after the dire wolf vanished from the earth, we brought it back. Or at least we thought we did. Remus was designed to look like a predator from the past. His bones matched the fossils. His body moved with the weight and power described in ancient records. But when scientists finally finished sequencing his genome, when they could read the entire blueprint, they realized something extraordinary. The dire wolf was never a wolf at all. Despite the name, despite the resemblance, dire wolves split off from the ancestors of modern wolves over 5 million years ago. Genetically, they're more distant from gray wolves than humans are from chimpanzees. Their closest living relatives aren't wolves, they're jackals and African wild dogs, which means the creature we rebuilt wasn't a forgotten cousin. It was the last member of an entirely different branch of the canine family tree, a lineage that had no modern descendants, no surviving relatives, and no second chance. Until now. So what have we brought back? Not just a powerful predator from the Ice Age, but a mystery, a species so long misunderstood that we didn't even know what it was until we tried to resurrect it. That's the paradox of de-extinction. It promises to restore what was lost, but it often ends up revealing how little we ever understood it in the first place. And if this story stirred your curiosity, we've got more waiting for you. Our ebook, Secrets of the Ancient World, is your next step into ancient technology, unsolved mysteries, and forgotten cities. The link's in the pinned comment. Thank you for exploring this strange return with Armchair Archaeology. If you found this story fascinating, give the video a like, subscribe for more lost worlds, and hit the bell so you never miss what's next. And tell us in the comments, if you could bring back one extinct species, would you? And more importantly, should you? Until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and never stop questioning the past.